Hi guys, Lena Rodriguez, your in-house sociologist, reporting in. Now, it's always a good day anywhere in the world if you wake up and you find out Trump hasn't intended to annex your country in the night. So far, Australia hasn't been mentioned, probably because it's not on his radar. As a guy who only went between Queens and Manhattan for 70 years, I think he would have no clue where Australia was. He certainly wouldn't know that we house the United States' biggest spy satellite system in the Southern Hemisphere. We have been into every conflict with America. And most Americans don't know any of this either. I'm sorry, guys, but look, so it was a relief. Woke up today, haven't been annexed. But this rolling bullying of random countries, who can see a pattern in it? Oh, they've got oil, we want it. They're next door, we want it. These random things. And a terrifying question becomes, what about the Pentagon? Are they going to carry out these fiendish dictators' orders? Oh my God. So at this critical time in history, who do you put in charge of the Pentagon? Oh, I know. Some intellectual, lightweight person with a drinking problem who's misogynistic. So tick, 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 tick. Peter Hegsworth. Hegsworth, what's his name? Hegseth. Yeah. Can you believe it? But in the meantime, before all that happens, he's got to be inaugurated. And before that happens, they need to elect a new speaker. So let's have a look what's happening in the Valley of the Hyenas Congress about that. I mean, I looked a little bit at what would happen if Musk took up the cudgels. I think the only reason he won't is not because he's not qualified, because apparently there is an historical precedent for not being in the House before you become Speaker. Oh, God. But because he wouldn't want it, surely. But anyway, let's have a look at how that's going to go. The gangrenous Marjorie Taylor Greene and the other completely certifiable MAGAs. I mean, we are actually, I digress already, haven't pulled a card. We're actually looking at a situation where they may fail to put themselves into power. It's beyond bizarre. It's so dystopian. So let's have a look what's happening with that, with Mike Johnson, etc. Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, well, I'm sure. Oh, this is interesting. Now, juggling and manipulation. You can imagine the conversations, the threats, the bravado, the pantomime that is going on behind the scenes. And they're on very unsteady ground here. Knight of Wands, I think, represents those voices who, what's left of the old Republican Party, who in their own way were pushing America towards an oligarchy and serving the rich only, etc., etc. They're now starting to look like reasonable people. Not many left. They would be the rhinos. But the whole situation is very confusing. This figure doesn't really know what's happening, doesn't really know what to choose, is really quite bedazzled by it. Oh, whoops. Outcome card. I think they're going to stab each other in the back to such an extent, it's not going to go forward in a timely fashion. It might only be a delay of a few days, putting off the horror. But this card is the end of a cycle, right? I think they are so inept, scarily inept, that they might shoot themselves in each foot, you know? How bizarre, how bizarre. Now, before I go on, I want to talk a bit about RFK Jr. because he seems to be moving to a very powerful position. Look, I'm ambivalent, but not, about his role. I think he's actually extremely naive. Now, think about this man. He's grown up in one of the most profound dynasties in modern American history. So he sat down as a child with heads of state and powerful players and do. He's only ever known the uber rich, who, if nothing else, with the exception of the Yeti, tend to eat very well. So he has this naivety around making America healthy again. Now, I am a health sociologist, and our bread and butter is explaining the class differences in health. Bear with me, viewers. So, we jokingly call it, but it's not a joke really, health by zip code. Okay, because you can actually predict so many preventable diseases that will impact lower income areas more than higher income areas and people's actual life expectancy, because you have worse diets, he's right about that, but you have less access to primary health care, less access to acute health care, and you're simply more likely to die because you're a working class American. And that's just a statistical reality. Right. Now, he has these, as I say, naive plans, get people eating healthily. Now, most working class people, and even more so what we call in sociology the precariat or the underclass, those who are third generation unemployed, etc. But even the working class, solid working class, people are busy, and also you can track the actual food availability in suburbs. So most working class people live in what we call food deserts. So there's not much actual fresh food available. There's endless fast food outlets. Right? You can choose between 77 fast food outlets. But if you follow people through supermarkets and look at their trolleys, you are not seeing, and this is the same in Australia, I'm sure it's the same in Canada and other places, the working class are not going out with trolleys full of spinach and asparagus and fresh salad ingredients. No, they're coming out full of highly processed carcinogenic foods. And I'm sorry, RFK, you're not going to change that very quickly because it's entrenched in these class positions, right? So when you think about what are the problems with that? Well, also with low quality, highly processed, cheap food, which is why people are buying it, it's so much cheaper. We could debate that in other ways, but for the sake of this conversation. So the chicken nuggets and the fries that are in the shitty oil and all of this stuff, it's every stage of the food processing, right? So it's the fertilizers that are very dangerous, fertilizers that are used on the feed that goes to feed the animals that are then held in such appalling conditions. They're pumped full of growth hormones, turn the cycle around for agribusiness, get those chickens producing earlier. They're full of antibiotics, because they're so closely housed, they're full of disease, so mega antibiotics. Yeah. And then the processing itself, and then preservatives. And so if it says on the box, best before August 2025, please know it's not food, it's a food lookalike substance. And all these things compound existing health problems in the working class communities. Okay, it's just how it is. Not how it should be, but how it is. And people's palates get used to high fat, high sugar highs. Okay, so the palate wants it. Yeah. So best of luck with that, RFK, and you explain to the parents of the polio victims and the kids who become blind or deaf through rubella and measles, naive at best. Okay, where are we going? All right, now let's have a look here. I want to have a look. Is it possible? Oh, sorry. I just have to pause you for a moment. Sorry. Sorry about that. A dog issue. Let's have some positive news. So, people are boycotting MAGA businesses. Awesome. If you can identify them, boycott them, love that. Many states are preparing their resistance. So California, Washington State, Oregon, Hawaii, Illinois, New York are planning ways to try and Yeti-proof their states. Bless. I was really heartened to see sheriffs in border states, not all of them, but a significant number, are refusing to comply with ICE and Homeland Security. And I'm sure that's because many of them are married to Mexicans, have half Mexican grandchildren, etc. They actually understand where they live geographically. So I was pleased to see that. And best law, yes, a large demo, hopefully the largest, on the 18th of January in Washington, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Oh my God. Now, I hope that Americans who are intending to go are inspired. Have you seen the protests in Belgrade? We've seen the protests in the country of Georgia against Russia. Now we are seeing it in Belgrade. And the aerial photos just go back and back and back and back. Massive protests. So the upside of all this crap that we're all going through, people power. People power. So if you're intending to go to the protest, go with people, organize people. If you are not going, because you're not 22 anymore, or whatever reason, you can still lend support, organising, but make sure you're very safe. Make sure you're in a group, you've got contact with each other, and keep eyeballs on each other. Stay strong. But that will be an interesting development. So now, I don't know, haven't looked at Peter Thiel. I kept hearing the name Peter Thiel because he's a zillionaire who has pumped a lot of money into the Yeti getting over the line. And I think it was Midas Touch who had some footage. Oh no, originally he was interviewed by Piers Morgan, who is a nasty bit of right-wing work from the UK. But you know what? And I hate to admit this, he's a really good interviewer if your criteria is getting people who don't want to talk, right? That is his skill. However, this guy, I couldn't actually believe it. Well, he was asked about healthcare. Where are my notes? He was asked about healthcare, and he's this. What's disturbing is he looks like a young Roy Cohn, and he was just this jabbering, burbling, inarticulate idiot. We've got to stop worshipping millionaires, billionaires, and so on, and thinking they're clever, let alone geniuses. And here's Peter Thiel, who's some sort of warped Christian. They never seem to get the bit of the Bible that says, welcome the stranger or turn the other cheek. They all go for this Old Testament crap. So I was surprised. And rumour has it that Peter Thiel is gay. Now, I couldn't possibly comment. But this stuff, these guys are not smart. And he started PayPal, then had a fight with Elon over PayPal. But they either just come up with a good idea or they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth with blood on the spoon, which is the case for Trump and it's the case for Elon, whose wealth comes from blood emeralds. No, we've got to stop this worshipping of the rich. And Bernie Sanders is right that America is lurching into a full-blown oligarchy, and some could argue already there. But anyway, let's move on here. I'd just like to look now how the rest of the world is looking at the US. Let's have a look at that. The rest of the world. The rest of the world. Well, with these cards, King of Wands, I think this is in this context, Musk. I don't think it's the Yeti. The Yeti gets the Emperor card with the stone throne. This is the King of Wands. This is someone who talks large, and we all know the Yeti can't get a sentence out. You know, he's a dribbling, drooling zombie when he's not on his meds. You know, did you see the recent rally? I digress before I get to this. Maybe this is part of it. I'll hold that thought. Okay, this is other people around the world working cooperatively. So, for example, this would be NATO. How are we going to cope with another 4 years of this imbecile at the helm who's extremely dangerous? How are we going to navigate that? This is countries that have been directly threatened. Mexico, Canada, Greenland, Panama. How do we respond? You know, I think the world can sense the US is injured at this point. To have voted him once was just a huge mistake. To vote him in twice is an unforced error of magnitude we haven't seen. It will impact the entire world. And if he goes ahead with the tariffs and those other ridiculous plans that are anti-business, apart from anything else, anti-business, I think the US is running a huge risk of losing its place as a superpower. If these tariffs go ahead and epic global tariff wars start, not only will he be under, so America is at risk. And like I was saying about the Pentagon, it's essential to stay focused. We've got to bond together and band together until the midterms and get something sorted out. It's inevitable. You can't have someone as patently subpar as this man, as a leader twice, and not expect a result. It's like this is where isolationism and protectionism goes. All the dictators have tried, whether it was from Mussolini down and across and everywhere. On the one hand, allegedly protecting the country while co-opting other territories, but it never works in the end. Never works in the end. So I would say to all of you, it's really carefully calibrated time. Do not surrender. No. I think we all have an obligation. This is globally. It'd be very easy for me as an Australian to go, oh, well, whatever. It's so essential to stay engaged because we are a global community. And in all of this right-wing takeover everywhere, climate change and response to it has fallen off the radar. We've effectively lost 40 years in this fight. We are in this together. It is absolutely essential. So do what you need to keep your sanity. So maybe take in less news. I think people instinctively are taking in less news. And I think that's important. It's so frustrating to watch even MSNBC. CNN died several years ago and so on. And I think, like I was saying in my last video, podcasters are stepping up and I feel I'm doing my small part in this. But I think the podcasters are doing a great job, and particularly the southern ones like Texas Paul, Tennessee Brando, my beloved liberal redneck. They're doing a great job at talking to their people in those accents. I think the well-known podcasters are doing well, including Luke Beasley and all the others. Big shout out to Stephanie Miller's program. I love Stephanie Miller. So there's lots of ways you can keep on top of what's happening without selling your soul and feeling, and this is really important because fear is contagious, just as solidarity is contagious. There are millions of people sharing this hell. Okay, you are not alone. That's the most important takeaway. You're not alone. So, as we used to say in the 70s, stop being part of the problem and be part of the solution. It's really important to stay clear-eyed because we all live in such an accelerated world now. We forget these are cycles and they're horrendous when you're in them, but they are cycles. And so I still remain optimistic. On the other side of this cycle, you know what? People are going to realize who is really shafting them, and it's not half a dozen Mexicans. So there you have it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And take care, guys. Look after each other. Do kind things. Bless. Ciao for now.